Good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone, wherever you may be. Sorry for the delay. I think as Richie just commented, Facebook Live seems to be having some issues today. Probably because the whole world is stuck at home and all they have to do is live stream stuff. So fingers crossed this will all go smoothly. I'm recording this separately as well, so if the worst comes to it, I'll upload. You'll get a copy of the recorded video should this drop out. So if it does drop out, I'll keep on going, and I'll let you know when it's up. But fingers crossed, it'll be good for today. So today we're going to have a look at DSLR Remote Pro in a more, I guess, intermediate sort of setting. So what I sort of want to look at is how to use profiles, but just maybe more in a clever way of using profiles and multi-level profiles, I suppose. I'm going to look at some token stuff. I'm going to look at using videos and GIF files in the interface design as well, and then sort of putting that all together. If you're sticking around for the next class on the data structure, basically I'm going to sort of follow, that class will follow on essentially from this one, and the demo we're going to look at here I'm going to use in the next class and sort of show you how you can build what we've done here maybe a little bit easier by getting a bit more comfortable with XML files, and also how to structure folders and stuff on your computer so you can make events sort of transportable between photo booths that you've got. As usual, if you've got any questions, just post them in the comments, but because of the delay, I might be a minute or two before I get to answering them. Alright, so we'll jump over to my PC. So just an FYI, the way I run this live stream off my Mac, and I remote log into my photo booth to do the demo. Because this interface has got some videos in it, the animations may be a little choppy, but that's just because I'm logged in. So normally they'd play back smooth, so it's not a breeze thing or not something weird like that. It's just the fact that I'm remote locked into a photo booth. So I'm just going to give you a quick look at the demo that I put together that I want to have a look at today. So this is just sort of a hypothetical interface I've set up just for this demo. But what the idea of it is that you can click into a continent or a country, and then you can zoom into that country a bit further, then make some sub-selections depending on what country you're zoomed into. And to do that requires the use of profiles, and also sort of requires the use of multi-level profiles, I suppose. What I've set up here is really the basic structure for setting up something quite complex, where if you wanted to be able to click into every country and all the states or countries within a continent, you could do that. So it's sort of, I guess, laying some groundwork for doing some more advanced things, but not going to go too heavy into what you can do. I think it's just, because trying to keep this as an intermediate class rather than a super advanced class, just to give you some ideas and a starting point to see how we go. Alright, so basically in this example here, so if we click on Australia, what have I done here? Let me just back up a sec here. Hang on. This might be something just weird going on. I'm just going to pop you on hold for 1 sec, guys. Just 1 sec. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I was just tweaking something before I started the demo, which I never should have done, and I just broke something, so I just wanted to fix that. So you didn't have to see me swearing at the screen. I'm trying to fix something live. Okay, right, let's try that again. Alright. Okay, so here's our world map, and so this time if we click into Australia, it'll work as I intended it to. Okay, so once I've clicked into Australia, we can see now the map of Australia that's broken up into the 7 states of Australia. And if I click onto Queensland or New South Wales here, it'll then take me into that state and it'll run a session that's specific to that state or that profile. So before we get any further, let's sort of back up and let's have a look at what the basic structure is for this. Actually, sorry, and I'll just quickly show you also, if I click up in here in North America, it's going to zoom into North America, and then we can choose our political persuasion as an option here. So let's have a look at the basic structure if we just pop back out of here. So basically, I've created a folder here for this demo called Corona Demo. Oops, what's that one? And essentially what I've got here is four main folders. So the menu is the world map. So this is basically the main profile, the one that we return to at the end of each session. So it's pretty simple. It's really just made up of the 3 files. The world map I use as a ready background and a ready overlay. And the reason I put a ready overlay in is because I like to keep the live view turned on the camera. And by having the ready overlay file, which is a PNG with no transparency, it covers up the entire live view. And I do that because it basically, otherwise if you turn the live view off when you start the photo session, then the camera sort of has to turn on, and it just takes a little bit longer. So I keep the live view on generally and just mask it. And then our settings file. So that's our first profile, and that's the main menu. Then we have, for example, Australia. And Australia is made up of 2 subfolders, which will be essentially the states that I've set up for this demo. I haven't set up every state, I'm just doing a couple just for brevity. The ready background file, which we'll look at in a sec, ready video file, a share screen, which I'm actually not going to use, so I can probably delete that, to be honest, and our settings file. So the main thing is here, and this is how we achieve that sort of zoomed in effect, is that we're just using a video file. And so that video file basically is just a little animation that I made that starts at the zoomed out world map, and I just zoomed it in to Australia in the video file. So what's happening is when you click from the main menu into Australia, it's switching to the Australia profile, and then it's playing that video to give the effect that we're zooming in. Now I've got a ready background file in here which you don't see because it's covered by the video, and the reason I've done this is just purely when you're in DSLR Remote Pro setting up your touchscreen hotspots, you can't apply you can't see the video when you're applying the hotspots. So this is just a little placeholder image I put in just for the sake of designing the hotspots. So just to show you what I mean, if we just jump in and quickly load, go into Australia here. Okay, so when I'm doing the hotspots for Australia, basically I just need a reference point. So you don't see this image in the final interface, but it's just there just for making it easier to do the hotspots, because you can't view the video when you're doing it this way. So that's a little tip, I suppose, if you're using videos. Okay, if we jump back into here, so then we have the subfolders of 1 and 2. So 1 is the folder of assets for when we've selected Queensland, and I can see that see that here. So with my ready overlay file, so when we tap onto Queensland, this is the image that we see. So I've highlighted Queensland, and we've got the box here for where the live view is going to go. Then for New South Wales, which is the second option, you can see here in the ready overlay file for that, it's now selected that state. Now, as part of the demo, I'm going to set up the rest of the New South Wales option, which I haven't done yet. So I'll come back to that, that's why it's empty. Now, if we jump over to the America folder, it's the same thing. I have a ready video file for America, but this time it's going to zoom from the global map down into North America, and bring up these options here. And within that, similarly, we have the assets for the sub options, and we can see here if you select Bernie Sanders, then we have this screen here. So I guess if you think about it, really, it's just like a, it's just a multi-layer sort of thing, and you just think about it logically. So we start at the top with our menu. So this is the very main menu that we click onto to start with. When you click on that, we're then loading either Australia or America, and if we get time, we'll look at Africa, but we'll probably just work with Australia and America for the demo today. So we click into Australia, which then loads this settings file. So once we've loaded that settings file then basically runs this video. Then from here, we're clicking into either folder 1 or folder 2, which are my states. So it's just a matter of structuring your assets in some sort of logical way. Now, there's a reason why I've named these folders 1 and 2 as opposed to by the names of the states, Queensland and New South Wales. And you'll notice that I've done the same here in the America folder. Rather than calling it Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, I've just named it 1 and 2. And I've done this because it makes it easier to structure your profile setup, which is the next thing we sort of need to look at. So the way I've done this, and if we just jump into the settings in Breeze and come into profiles here, I've made my main menu profile 18. So you can just do that by clicking here, coming into your folders, going into menu, and I'm selecting my menu settings file. And then I have made my default profile 18 as well. I always tend to make my main menus profile 18 because it's sort of out of the way. So I keep it at the end just to keep it out of the way of all the other ones. And we've set profile 18 as the default, which means at the end of each session that we run, no matter what profile we're on, it'll always come back to that world map main menu. Profile 1, 2, and 3 are my countries or my continents. So we've got Australia set as profile 1, and it's the same principle. We'll come up here into Australia, and we'll select Australia as profile 1, and I've done the same for America and Africa. So basically, profile 18 is our main menu, and now we have profile 1, 2, and 3 as our continents. So when we're linking from our main menu, that's what we're going to be linking to. So we'll just stop there for a second. We'll come into the touchscreen editor. I'll just load my main menu. And we'll go into the touchscreen settings. And we have our world map here. So profile 1 was Australia, so I've created a touchscreen action for that. So I'll just delete that. I'll just show you how we do this. Delete this for a second. So now we have a blank map with no profiles linked to anything. So obviously if I save this and I ran this right now, when you ran this screen you wouldn't be able to do anything except exit the photo booth, because it's the only action on here. What we want to do is start linking these countries to the profiles or the settings that we've set up. So I'm going to add an action, and I'm going to select profile 1, and I want to put that around Australia, and we'll give it a bit of space. And now America was profile 2, So we'll put that up here. We'll just stretch it out a bit so we got a good target. And we'll just add in, even though we probably won't get time to look at it today, we'll add in Africa. Profile 3. Okay, so we can exit out of here by right clicking and just saying exit. We want to save that, but importantly we need to save these changes back into the menu settings file. So I'll say do that. Just ensure that we're in the menu folder here, and we'll save over the file. Now, one other tip that I'll point out is that I always call my settings files the same thing. I call them your settings, just because that's what I decided on. But I just find it's a lot more consistent if you use the same the same file name. When I've helped people out with Breeze stuff and I log into their computer and have a look, quite often I see that the files have got all sorts of random names. It's like whatever version, 22, 23, final version, that kind of thing. When you're working with profiles, it's really, really helpful to be consistent and to stick with a naming convention. So you'll see in here, everything is called your settings. Your settings. It just makes it a lot easier to manage, especially when you're doing more complex stuff. So it's good practice just to start with that. Okay, so we now have that link. So basically what that essentially has allowed us to do is now when we click on one of these areas, it'll load that profile setting and take us into that section. So if I'm on this screen here, if I exit out just by hitting the escape button on my keyboard, and if I come into the admin settings now, I can see down the bottom that we were in that America profile. Just one sec. Just seeing if the stream has stopped for some people. Seems to be okay here. I'm gonna keep going anyway. So now that I've exited out of that, I've exited out of the photo booth from that America section. When I come into the settings, it's got me loaded into the America profile, I suppose. So now that we're in the America profile, if we hit, actually we might do it on the Australia one. Okay, if we open up Australia and now go into touchscreen settings, like I was showing you earlier, now we need to apply the touchscreen settings to load the sub-profiles for each state that I've got here. So again, I'll just quickly delete that. Although I am skipping ahead one step here. I'm definitely skipping ahead one section here, so I'm going to come back. So I'm going to jump back into profiles because I didn't explain how the profiles work for these sub options. So a lot of people have asked me about what the photo booth dir or photo booth sub dir tokens are and how you use them. And this is a good example of how to use them. So basically, and it's all sort of in the manual, so I'm just going to jump onto the Breeze user guide for a sec. If you have a look at the tokens section, and if we just scroll, is it down? Might be up. Nope, down. Up. Where is it? Photo booth subdir. Oh, there we go. Was there? So we have these tokens, photo booth dir and photo booth subdirectory. Okay, so the token photo booth dir basically loads the full path name of the photo booth images folder, and photo booth subdir just returns the name of that folder. So what that means is it's talking about these folders: the menu folder, the Australia folder, the America folder. So if we have loaded the settings file for menu, the token photobooth.dir will return this path. If we load the settings file for the Australia menu, the photobooth.dir token will return this path here to the Australia folder. Okay. If you use photobooth sub.dir, it'll just return the name of the folder, Australia. So this is where what sort of allows us to more, I guess, dynamically load subfolders without having to create an overly complicated profile structure. And why it's also important, at least for the way I do things, is to have my sub options as numbers rather than named folders. So what we're doing in Breeze is basically using this token to allow us to only use two profiles to load the sub options for both Australia, America, and Africa. So what we're saying is, by using this photobooth.dir token, is that if the page that we're on, or if the screen that we're on in the interface is the Australia menu, then automatically put in the path to this Australia folder. So what this photobooth.dir token would be doing behind the scenes, when you load the Australia menu, it would essentially be doing this. It would be pasting in the path to the Australia folder, and then it would be giving me the option to load the two subfolders like that. Now, if I loaded the if I was clicked into America in the interface, similarly, what it would do behind the scenes, it would be switching, if I can copy that, it would be switching these profiles, 11 and 12, from Australia to America. Oops. Okay. So this allows me to use just two profiles to load the subfolders, no matter what the parent directory is, I suppose. And similarly, if I happen to click into Africa, then that photobooth sub.dir would automatically be replaced to Africa, like that. And that's how you can use, how you can start building quite complex, multi-layered profile structures without actually having to use thousands or hundreds of profiles. Now, that's not going to work for my demo if we do it that way, so just cancel that and go back in. So we're using photobooth.dir. So photobooth.dir is basically dynamically using the parent folder to load the subfolders. So that means when I come to build my touchscreen actions, so I'm in Australia here, so I'm using profile 11 and 12 as my first two options. Okay, so profile 11 will load Queensland, profile 12 will load New South Wales. Now, if I exit out of that, and we come back and load the America menu and look at the touchscreen actions. All right, so here's my two main options, Bernie and Donald Trump. And again, I'm using profile 11 and 12. It's the same profile, 11 and 12, because it's dynamically switching folders to the America menu folder. So I don't need to use profile 13 and 14 or some other numbers. I can use the same profiles. If I was to add a third option to any of these, and in the case of the Australia one, where there could be 7 options, I would just use profile 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And all I would do, if I had those options, is I would add in more of these, and then I would change these to folder 3, folder 4, etc. Okay. So that basically allows me to build a whole subdirectory underneath each main menu item without having to dedicate a profile to each one of them. It's also important to make sure that you are basically nesting things, I suppose. So in the Australia folder, we want to put our sub options under the Australia folder. This is a lot harder to do or manage if you kept all your sub options, for example, back up the top here. So you really need to sort of nest things to make this work properly, and then you can start building a more logical, click-through sort of interface. So that gives us what we need. So if we click through to Australia, this is the Australia main menu settings file, and then when I click into Queensland, it then loads my assets where we can hit the start button. We'll come back to this tick box in a minute, and we can run a photo through. I'm just taking a single photo for today. Okay, and we're done. So I want to have a closer look at some of the assets that I used to make up that interface for Australia. So the main menu itself, as I've already shown you, is basically just that video file. That's all it is, just one single file. So that's really actually quite simple. Then when you click onto Queensland, it's made up of these files here. So our ready screen I've just got as a background image. What we're actually really seeing is the ready overlay. The ready overlay has got my highlighted state, so we know what selection we've made, and then we've got the window here, which is a transparent box with the tap to start button on it. For the countdown, I'm using a GIF file. Loads. Yep. Oops. Again. So this is just a GIF, a 3-frame GIF that I made in Photoshop. Just goes 3, 2, 1. And that GIF file basically, as soon as you hit the start button, the tap to start button, sits on top of the whole screen and does the countdown for me. Now, obviously, a GIF file, you can have transparency. So in this particular case, I wanted to cover the entire screen because I've got my live preview in this little window here. But this could be as simple as just a big 3, 2, 1 in the middle of the screen with the rest as a live view. Now, you also may have noticed that there was a little tick box option that I had. So as part of this, we're also basically giving people the ability to opt in or opt out to having their image being used in a live slideshow. So to do that, we need to create a custom keyboard to put the tick box in. So keyboards in DSLR Remote Pro are basically made up of 4 screens. We have the lowercase screen and you have to think about this, I guess, more in terms of when you're typing text. In this example, it's just a tick box, but keyboards are essentially made up of the 4 screens. What you want to display when it's a lowercase key, an uppercase key, and then the pressed versions of those. And I'm not going to go into full keyboard design today, but we are going to look at this checkbox option. And then I've just got my taking screen and my processing, which is a thank you screen at the end. So let's just jump back in here again and just have a quick look at this tick box for the keyboard. So if we zoom into Australia, so when I hit start, we've got this question, but first, do you agree to your image being used in our live feed slideshow? So we've got the option there to tick that to agree, or not tick it to disagree. So we need to set this up in Breeze, and you need to do this in XML, which is not quite as scary as it sounds. Though I will point out in the iPad app, a lot of this is now done in the event editor and is a bit more graphical, so it is actually easier. So it does take a little bit more time to set up in DSLR Remote Pro. So basically, you can grab off the Breeze website in the user guide under the survey section some sample XML code. And XML basically is just text, so any text editor will work. I use a text editor called Notepad++, which is free, and just makes the code a little bit easier to display. So basically what we need to do is really just saying where do you want the checkbox displayed on your image. So here's my screen that's going to have the checkbox on it. So we just need to give it the left and top pixels to place it. So how many pixels from the left do we want the checkbox, and how many pixels from the top do we want the checkbox? So I already had that worked out. I'll come back here. So we've got 356 and 538. So that places it in the correct spot. If, just so you can see how this works, I should remember what that was, 356. If we move that to 600 pixels from the left and save that and hit start, okay, now it's moved over there, right? So we don't want it over there, we want it back over here. So adjusting the left and the top number basically just shifts this checkbox around. So it's not, not rocket science. Brain surgery maybe, but not rocket science. What did I say, 356? So I'll put that back to 356. Then we just need an OK button. So once we have made the selection with either on and off, we need an OK button, to move to the next screen. So this is our little chunk of code for the OK button, and it's the same principle. Where do you want the OK button to start from the left, and where do you want it to start from the top? And because it's a button, we need to give it some width and height. So it's the same thing. How wide do you want the button, and how high do you want the button? So once you have that set, then basically you are pretty good. So let's just look at that on the way through. And we'll click into Queensland. I'll hit start. Oops, did I not save that? I did not save that. So we'll click into Queensland and we'll hit start. Yep, there we go. And we'll tick that. And we'll just run a quick session through. Okay. So we've done that now. Now if we, and we're going to come back to this in a second because we want to do something more useful with that, but while we're here, I want to have a look at New South Wales because I haven't quite got this finished off. So I want to quickly run through how we get this finished off. Yeah, use Photoshop is the easiest way to work out your pixel location. That's exactly right. I don't have Photoshop open at the sec, but I open the image in Photoshop and just drag across the guide, and that shows you. So the issue we've got at the moment when I select New South Wales is that the live view's off, we've got no countdown, and the whole thing's a bit broken. So let's just quickly fix that up, and this is pretty easy. We'll jump into this folder. Okay. So really what I'm going to do is grab the assets from the Queensland folder. Sorry, I'll just grab those. The continue button is the OK button. Yeah, sorry, I should have explained that. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. I'm going to grab, which ones don't I need? I don't need those ones, I don't think. So it's going to copy those across to here. And the only thing we need to do is I shifted slightly the live view in the New South Wales option. I think is in a slightly different place. But if we have a quick look, yeah. So now New South Wales is sort of fixed up a little bit. So that's looking a little bit better, and I just need to adjust the live view. But so that's really all we needed to do for New South Wales, was just bring in some of the screen assets from Queensland. But what I want to jump back to is the checkbox, and so we've ticked it, but how do we do something more useful with that? What happens is, for starters, when the images save, I'm just going to quickly see. Let me just do one thing here. Get that out. So I'm just going to quickly run one more session through so we can generate a file to show you, to see what happens with this XML file. So I'll tick that through one more time. Okay. So we're just going to go look at where I saved those images. Okay, so when Breeze saves out the images, it creates all the relevant folders, so prints, processed images, the JPEG, and it also creates an XML file for each session. So we should have in here, so this is the information that was captured about that particular session that I just run, the time, the date that it was done, you know, where which profile was used, where the images were downloaded to, etc., etc. But it also saves the survey data, which in this case is the checkbox. So survey 1 checkbox ID slideshow is set as 1. So in terms of the checkbox, the 1 means it's been selected, 0 means it hasn't been selected. So because I ticked it, it says 1. But if we run one more session and don't tick it, we'll see what happens. Just give me one sec. Okay, so we'll just select that one. And Zach, stop chatting to me in the background. If we... Come on. There we go. If we run one more session and we don't tick it, we'll see what happens. Okay, so we'll just jump out of here and we'll come back to our test event folder. So now it's created the second session, and if we just have a look at this XML file, we'll see that is now set as 0, which means it hasn't been selected. Now, for most of us, you know, this is just not that useful because, you know, what do you do with this XML file? We want to do something more useful with this data. What we really want to do is split our images to save into separate folders based on whether or not people have selected to opt into the slideshow or not. So let's have a look how we do that. I was going to delete that one. So there's a couple of things we'll actually look at here. So in the beginner class the other day, what we looked at was how to one way to name events. So if we come into the event settings here, we can give this an event name. So I've called this, I've dated it, so it's 2003-26 Corona Party. So we can use that to create a folder automatically. So if we come into preferences, basically in here, at the moment I was saving into a folder called test event, but if we use a token called, I'll spell it correctly, event name, we can see down here it's now going to pull that event name from the settings that just before, and everything will now save into a folder called Corona Party, which is great. So that's the first part, because we want everything sort of saving into the same event folder. If you jump into the tokens page in the user guide, there is a token here for surveys and checkboxes. So this is the one that we want. So we've got one survey and we've got one checkbox. So we want to grab this token here called survey 1 checkbox 1. So if we come back into our preferences here and we use that token, and if we now can create another subfolder based on the survey data. So what it's done here is now it's set the folder, the subfolder, as 0. It bases this on the last session that we've run. So the last session I run, we didn't enable the checkbox. So it's going to now save the photos into this Corona Party folder and into a subfolder based on what was done with the checkbox. So let's save that. And we'll just run another session and we'll just see what happens this time. Okay, so we will continue. I'll exit out of here. Now we come back to our folder here and it's created the Corona Party event folder based on that event name, and now it's created a folder called 1, and in this folder called 1 I can see the images that were just captured. If we run another session and we don't tick the checkbox, it's going to save it into a folder called 0. So let's just quickly do that. So if we come back here, we now have a folder called 0. So now from here on in, any image that we take where the checkbox has not been selected will save into folder 0, and any images that have been captured with the checkbox ticked will save into folder 1. So now if we are running a live slideshow at an event, we can have our software, Breeze Kiosk or Breeze Viewer, for example, just monitor the 1 folder. And so now we know that anyone that's been displayed on the slideshow has agreed to be in it. So that's pretty useful stuff. But you can also split it up different ways. And also we can make this a little bit more user-friendly as well. So we can actually rename these folders. Rather than having 0 and 1, we could actually call them opt-in and opt-out. So how do we do that? Well, probably the easiest way to do it is to use another token. So basically, and this is getting into slightly more advanced stuff with token usage, but I don't think it's that hard to get your head around. So we'll give it a go. Hopefully I can explain it. Yeah, I mean, another way you could do the whole opt-in, opt-out slideshow thing is with profiles. So you could have at the very, very start on the world map, you could have two buttons, one that says, do you agree to having your images used, yes or no? If they hit the no button, then you could take it to a profile that says, sorry, you can't use the photo booth if you don't agree to our terms and conditions. And if they hit yes, then it goes through, and you could split the photos out a different way. So there's multiple ways you can do things. In a lot of ways, using profiles is a good way to do it. Using a survey to do it is just a different way. And makes an assumption that you are allowed to use the booth, I guess, regardless. So it depends on, I suppose, what you're trying to achieve. All right, so we are looking for a token around here called if test. So basically, this token here is just saying if the survey option is 1, which means on, then we want to use the word opt-in. If the survey token returns 0, then we want to use the word opt-out. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to replace, actually I'll just keep that one there for the second. So we're going to paste this one in, so it's our if. So we're saying if the test, and the test is the survey checkbox, so we're going to post. So now we have basically sort of a token within a token. So saying if survey 1 checkbox 1, that's what we're looking at. If it returns 1, meaning that we've opted in, then we want to output the word opt-in. If it returns 0, which means they have opted out, we want to put the word in opt-out. Okay, so we can see down here now that rather than using 0 and 1, it's now using the word opt-out. So if we run a session, and we tick the box, and if we come back to the folder here, so now it's saving into an opt-in folder instead of just a folder called 1 or 0. So we'll get rid of those. So from here on in, we're going to have opt-in, opt-out folders. And I'll just quickly run through one with an opt-out so we can see how that works. Is that my yard? No, it's actually one of my employees' yards. We did a job for British American Tobacco, and they were having a backyard themed party, and they wanted a custom backdrop. And one of my staff members had the perfect backyard, so she took a photo of it, and we got it printed as a backdrop. It's on a fun-related side note, we actually do quite a lot of work for tobacco companies, which is quite funny because in Australia here they have really strict laws about tobacco advertising, as in you can't advertise tobacco, you can't show it, you can't do anything. But British American Tobacco still have lots of events, but all their events are sort of actually based around like barbecues and drinking beer, because they figure there's an association between a barbecue and drinking beer that you might want to have a cigarette at the same time. Anyway, that's what that backdrop was for. So now we have an opt-out folder. So that data now looks just, it's a little bit neater, I guess. So the other thing is though, what's going to happen is, if we just jump back in here and come up to America, and we'll just run through a session with Bernie. I've got the same survey, it's just a different graphical design. So we just rephrased it. Can we spam you? Yes. So it's going to use the same tokens that I set up in the preferences, and it's going to save these images into the same opt-in, opt-out folder. But that may not make total sense in the context of, say, what we were trying to do at this event. So maybe what we also want to do is split these images into Australia and America, and then into their respective opt-in, opt-out boxes. So perhaps at this event, the images captured when people select Australia are going to go into a live slideshow, but the images collected when people select America aren't going to go into a slideshow, but they want to know if they can be added to that email list for political spamming. So how do we do that? The design of the tick box is not customizable. It is in the iPad version, but not on the DSLR Remote Pro. The iPad version, to be fair, Chris has done a really great job of allowing for a lot more flexibility in design on surveys and keyboards in the iPad version, but sadly that is yet to make its way back to DSLR Remote Pro. Hopefully it will. Sue, tell him. Okay, so we want to split the images now by country as well. So how do we do that? So this is where it was key in our folder setup. So if we just come back into our asset folders here, what we want to do is basically use the names of these folders to automatically create, to determine where the images are going to get saved. So let's have a look. It's going to use some more tokens. So we want to come back to, all right, let's close that. We want to use this, one of the photo booth dir tokens again. So what we're really wanting to do is use this token here that's going to pull, that's going to have the path name that's going to contain the word America or the word Australia in it. But then we need to extract that. So if we just grab this photo booth dir token, and if we come to preferences, now we want to, the way I want to do it, I want to group it by country and then opt-in. So I want to put this folder before my survey token stuff. So what this photo booth dir token has done is returned the path to whatever profile I was currently loaded on, which currently is Africa, and then the opt-in folder. But we don't, this is not quite right, because now we've got C:\/ photo booth events, Corona party, C:\/ custom. You know, this doesn't work. So we want to extract out of this section just the word Africa. So there's another token that we can use to do that. So if we come back to our list of tokens here, there is a token. Hey Dion. There's a token called, I think it's up here. Yep. Field and string. All right. So basically, what this does is extracts a word out of another token, essentially. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to just slot it in here for 1 second, and we're going to take the photo booth dir token, and we're going to put it in here. So basically, the str, which stands for string, is where we want to paste in this other token, which is photo booth dir. And then we want to say which field do we want to extract. So if we just come back to here for a sec. So in this example here, so field to file name, it's going to extract the second field from the file name. Okay, so the file name is this, and it's going to extract the second field, which is basically this. So it uses backslashes and spaces to break up a field. So if you have a word with a space, then the space is basically determining the start of a field, or a backslash is also determining the start of a field. So the second field is image in this case. So what we want to do is extract essentially from this path here the word Australia. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, let me just count that. So from TPBG, so we've got a space, a backslash. So field 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it's going to be field 7. So we'll see if we get that right. Demo. Nope. Okay, so if we just jump back into here, I did field 7, which landed me on that one. So it's actually going to be field 8, so which will give me Australia. So we change that to field 8. So okay, Africa. Right, that's correct. Right. So now what's going to happen is if we run a session. Just jump over to this one. Tap start. Let's tick that. Right, if we jump back out of here and we just have a look at where our image is saved. Okay, so now it's created an Australia folder and an opt-in folder underneath that. So now let's get rid of these ones because we don't want those anymore. So from here on in, it's going to automatically create folders and subfolders based on the country that we selected and whether we opted in or out to the slideshow. So let's try that again and select something from America. So choose Bernie. We won't agree. So now we have a folder here for America, and because I opted out. So we're now starting to split the data multiple ways based on how people have interacted with the photo booth. And this really is the crux of the power of Breeze, and where, yeah, they're going to get spammed anyway, correct. This is not Europe. So we might jump over to here anyway. So this really is the power of Breeze. So you can take how people have interacted with the photo booth and then actually use that data. I think we've actually dropped out from the live feed. But we'll keep on going. So in this example, what we've done, we have basically created a multi-layer interface where people could sort of navigate to certain parts of the world based on where they wanted to go, and within that country make additional selections. But then we can use those choices to split data out, and that's really quite powerful stuff. Because it means you can gather really specific information on people, but it's useful for things like running slideshows or or just gathering data intelligence on people. So this is the sort of stuff that you can't really, I'm not aware of any other photo booth software that allows you to do this sort of stuff. And it does take a little bit to get your head around it, but once you do, and once you start sort of getting these concepts of how you can split data and how you can create these multi-layered interfaces, you can really do some just incredible stuff. And a good example is something we did with a football team where people wanted to be able to have a choice of what players are in the team. basically what I've shown you today is really an extension of that, but you got to sort of start with these foundational bits and pieces, I guess. So look, it does look like our live feed has dropped out, but that was really pretty much what I wanted to show today. I might try and stick around in the group for a bit and ask some questions and see, yeah, we can chat about it further. But hopefully that gives you some sort of inspiration for doing something a bit different in Breeze other than just a simple, single profile interface. So that's it for now, guys. I will chat to you in a sec on the group.